The great dome of crystal base shook as another wave of enemy fire pounded its shields. Red warning lights flashed across the command center where 50 blue-skinned aliens worked at their stations. Their four-fingered hands moved quickly over control panels as they tried to keep their last outpost alive. Commander Vex stood in the center of the room, his tall frame rigid with tension. His silver uniform was wrinkled from 3 days without rest. The skin around his large, purple eyes had darkened with exhaustion. "Status report," he ordered, his voice steady despite the fear in his chest. Officer Trell looked up from her station, her antenna drooping with bad news. "Shield strength at 30%, Commander. The Void Hunters have us surrounded on all sides. No response to our distress calls." Vex nodded. He had expected this. The Void Hunters never left survivors. They were perfect killing machines, logical, efficient, and without mercy. In 3 months, they had destroyed 12 Tellurian outposts. Crystal Base was the last one. "How many of our people remain?" Vex asked. 823 civilians in the lower levels," Trell answered, "and 76 defense personnel. Too few to fight back. Too many to watch die." The doors to the command center slid open. Science Officer Mira rushed in, her white coat flapping behind her. Her eyes were wide with excitement, the first positive emotion Vex had seen in days. "Commander," she called, "I need to speak with you. Now." Vex followed her to a quiet corner of the room. "What is it, Mira? We don't have much time." "I found something," she whispered, holding up an old data crystal. "In the ancient records section, the possible way out." Hope flickered in Vex's heart, but he controlled it. "Explain." "The Void Hunters have destroyed every outpost they've attacked, correct?" Mira said quickly. "But there's one record of them retreating. Just one, from 300 years ago." "What happened?" "They encountered a creature they couldn't predict. A species whose actions made no logical sense to them." Mira's voice dropped even lower. "They encountered a human." Vex stared at her. "Humans are banned from space travel. The Galactic Council locked them in their home system after the War of Flames." "Yes, because every species in the galaxy feared them," Mira insisted, "including the ancestors of the Void Hunters." Another blast rocked the base. The lights flickered. "Shield at 20%, a voice called out. Vex grabbed Mira's arm. "What are you suggesting?" "There's an old device in storage, a summoning portal from before the ban. We could use it to bring a human here." "That's illegal," Vex hissed. "And dangerous. More dangerous than certain death," Mira challenged. "The records say humans are unpredictable, emotional, and highly adaptable. Everything the Void Hunters are not." Vex looked around the command center at his tired crew. At the screens showing the massive Void Hunter ships surrounding their base. They had maybe 3 hours before the shields fell. "Do it," he ordered. "But quietly. Use Lab 7. Take only people you trust." 2 hours later, Vex stood in Lab 7 watching as Mira and her team worked on an ancient metal ring. The device was taller than 2 Tellurians and covered in strange symbols. "It's ready," Mira announced. "The portal is calibrated to find a human with high adaptability traits." "And if it brings us a dangerous one?" asked Trell, who had joined their desperate plan. "All humans are dangerous," Mira replied. "That's the point." She activated the device. The air inside the metal ring shimmered and turned a deep blue. Energy crackled around the edges. "It's working," Mira exclaimed. "The portal is opening to Earth." The blue light inside the ring pulsed brightly. Then, without warning, a figure tumbled through and crashed onto the lab floor. It was bigger than a Tellurian, with fewer limbs. It wore strange clothes, heavy boots, thick pants, and a jacket with many pockets. Its skin was a pinkish-tan color, and dark hair covered the top of its head. The human groaned and pushed itself up on 2 arms. It looked around with small but expressive eyes, taking in the blue-skinned aliens and strange lab. "What the hell?" it said in a deep voice. Vex stepped forward. We apologize for bringing you here without permission. I am Commander Vex of the Tellurian Defense Force. We need your help. The human stood up fully, towering over the Tellurians. Its face showed confusion, then anger. My name is Jack, it said. Jack Stone. Where am I? And why should I help you after you kidnapped me? Before Vex could answer, another blast hit the base. The lights went out for 3 seconds before emergency power kicked in. We are under attack, Vex explained when the lights returned, by an enemy that has destroyed 12 of our outposts. We are the last. In less than an hour, they will break through our shields and kill everyone here. Jack frowned. And you think I can stop them? I'm just a geologist. I study rocks. You are a human, Mira said with reverence. The only species that ever made the Void Hunters retreat. Jack looked at her strangely. The what? Perfect logical beings, Trell explained. They cannot understand or predict emotional responses. Human unpredictability confuses them. Jack ran a hand through his hair. So you pulled me across the galaxy to confuse some aliens. To save 800 civilians, Vex said quietly, including many children. That seemed to reach the human. Vex saw a change in Jack's expression, a hardening of resolve. Show me what we're up against, Jack said. Vex led him to a screen showing the Void Hunter ships, sleek black vessels arranged in perfect geometric patterns around the base. Jack studied them with narrowed eyes. Their formation is too perfect, too predictable. Another blast hit the base. A warning alarm sounded. Shield at 15%, announced a voice over the speakers. Estimated failure in 48 minutes. Jack turned to Vex, determination in his strange, alien face. I'll help you, the human said. But I'll need weapons, maps of this place, and everything you know about these Void Hunters. For the first time in days, Vex felt a spark of hope. You'll have it all, he promised. Just tell us what to do. Jack followed Commander Vex through the curving hallways of Crystal Base. Blue emergency lights cast strange shadows as they walked. Every few minutes, the base would shake from another attack, and dust would fall from the ceiling. Why do these Void Hunters want to destroy you? Jack asked. Vex's purple eyes darkened. Resources. Our worlds are rich in minerals they need. It's simple math to them. Our lives are not part of their equation. They reached a small meeting room where Officer Trell and Mira were waiting. A holographic map of the base floated above the table. Our shield will fail in 40 minutes, Trell reported. We've moved all civilians to the center levels for protection. Jack studied the map. These Void Hunters, you said they're logical. How do they fight? Perfect formations, precise timing. They calculate the most efficient way to kill, Mira explained. They've never lost a battle. Except once, Vex added, looking at Jack. Against humans. Jack crossed his arms. Yeah, about that. Why would they fear humans? And why did you call us banned from space? The 3 Tellurians exchanged looks. You don't know, Mira realized. Your leaders keep it secret from you. Know what? Vex sighed. Humans were once part of the galactic community, 300 years ago, but there was a war. The War of Flames. Trell whispered, her antenna drooping. Your species fought with unusual methods, Vex continued. You didn't follow rules of battle. You used emotion where others used logic. You adapted faster than anyone could predict. And you won, Mira added, against impossible odds. But the victory scared every species in the galaxy. Jack frowned. So we were banned from space travel. I never heard anything about this. The Galactic Council built a barrier around your solar system, Vex explained, and erased the knowledge from Earth's records. They feared what humans might do if they spread throughout the stars. Jack's face showed disbelief, then anger. You're saying aliens have been keeping us prisoner in our own solar system for centuries. For the safety of all, Trell said quietly. Humans are unpredictable. Another blast rocked the base, this one stronger than before. Shield at 10%, announced a voice over the speakers. Jack paced around the table. So these void hunters, they fear humans because we're unpredictable. Their ancestors did, Mira said. They're a species that values perfect logic above all. Human emotions, human instincts, these things make no sense to them. They cannot calculate what you might do. Jack stopped pacing. Show me these void hunters. I want to see what they look like. Mira activated a screen on the wall. It showed a tall, thin creature with gray skin stretched tight over a skeletal frame. Its head was smooth and featureless, except for a cluster of small black eyes on the front. They see in patterns, Mira explained. Mathematical patterns. Everything they do follows strict rules and formulas. Jack studied the image. And they've never broken formation. Never changed tactics. Never, Vex confirmed. They don't adapt. They don't need to. Their standard approach has been enough to destroy 12 outposts. Jack's eyes narrowed. But it might not be enough against something they can't predict. You, Trell said. Maybe. Jack turned to Vex. I'll need weapons and access to your communication systems. Vex hesitated. What are you planning? Something unpredictable, Jack said with a small smile. In the armory, Jack examined the Tellurian weapons with growing disappointment. They were all energy-based, designed for precision. Don't you have anything that makes a big boom? He asked. The weapons officer, a stocky Tellurian named Gal, looked confused. Boom. Explosion. Noise. Smoke. Confusion. Gal shook his head. Our weapons are designed for efficiency. Clean kills. Jack sighed. That's your problem. Too efficient. Too predictable. He picked up a small energy pistol. Can these be modified? Modified how? To be less efficient. Less precise. Gal looked horrified. Why would you want that? Because your enemy expects efficiency, Jack explained patiently. They're counting on it. Jack followed Commander Vex through the curving hallways of Crystal Base. Blue emergency lights cast strange shadows as they walked. Every few minutes, the base would shake from another attack, and dust would fall from the ceiling. Why do these void hunters want to destroy you? Jack asked. Vex's purple eyes darkened. Resources. Our worlds are rich in minerals they need. It's simple math to them. Our lives are not part of their equation. They reached a small meeting room where Officer Trell and Mira were waiting. A holographic map of the base floated above the table. Our shield will fail in 40 minutes, Trell reported. We've moved all civilians to the center levels for protection. Jack studied the map. These void hunters. You said they're logical. How do they fight? Perfect formations, precise timing. They calculate the most efficient way to kill, Mira explained. They've never lost a battle. Except once, Vex added, looking at Jack. Against humans. Jack crossed his arms. Yeah, about that. Why would they fear humans? And why did you call us banned from space? The three Tellurians exchanged looks. You don't know, Mira realized. Your leaders keep it secret from you. Know what? Vex sighed. Humans were once part of the galactic community, 300 years ago. But there was a war. The War of Flames. Trell whispered, her antenna drooping. Your species fought with unusual methods, Vex continued. You didn't follow rules of battle. You used emotion where others used logic. You adapted faster than anyone could predict. And you won, Mira added. Against impossible odds. But the victory scared every species in the galaxy. Jack frowned. So we were banned from space travel. I never heard anything about this. The Galactic Council built a barrier around your solar system, Vex explained, and erased the knowledge from Earth's records. They feared what humans might do if they spread throughout the stars. Jack's face showed disbelief, then anger. You're saying aliens have been keeping us prisoner in our own solar system for centuries. For the safety of all, Trell said quietly. Humans are unpredictable. Another blast rocked the base, this one stronger than before. Shield at 10%, announced a voice over the speakers. Jack paced around the table. So these void hunters, they fear humans because we're unpredictable. Their ancestors did, Mira said. They're a species that values perfect logic above all. Human emotions, human instincts, these things make no sense to them. They cannot calculate what you might do. Jack stopped pacing. Show me these void hunters. I want to see what they look like. Mira activated a screen on the wall. It showed a tall, thin creature with gray skin stretched tight over a skeletal frame. Its head was smooth and featureless, except for a cluster of small black eyes on the front. They see in patterns, Mira explained. Mathematical patterns. Everything they do follows strict rules and formulas. Jack studied the image. And they've never broken formation. Never changed tactics. Never, Vex confirmed. They don't adapt. They don't need to. Their standard approach has been enough to destroy 12 outposts. Jack's eyes narrowed. But it might not be enough against something they can't predict. You, Trell said. Maybe, Jack turned to Vex. I'll need weapons, and access to your communication systems. Vex hesitated. What are you planning? Something unpredictable, Jack said with a small smile. In the armory, Jack examined the Tellurian weapons with growing disappointment. They were all energy-based, designed for precision. Don't you have anything that makes a big boom? He asked. The weapons officer, a stocky Tellurian named Gal, looked confused. Boom. Explosion. Noise. Smoke. Confusion. Gal shook his head. Our weapons are designed for efficiency. Clean kills. Jack sighed. That's your problem. Too efficient, too predictable. He picked up a small energy pistol. Can these be modified? Modified how? To be less efficient, less precise. Gal looked horrified. Why would you want that? Because your enemy expects efficiency, Jack explained patiently. They're counting on it. Before Gal could respond, Mira entered the armory. She looked excited. I've been studying your DNA, she told Jack. It's fascinating. Your body has stress responses we don't have. Jack frowned. You took my DNA. The portal scanner did, Mira explained. You have something called adrenaline. It changes how you think and act when in danger. Fight or flight, Jack said. Basic human response. It makes you faster and stronger, Mira continued. But it also makes you more unpredictable. I think I can enhance this response with our technology. Jack looked interested. How? Mira held up a small metallic patch. This will stimulate your adrenal glands when needed. It might help you react even faster. Jack considered it for a moment, then nodded. Do it. Mira placed the patch on Jack's neck. He felt a cold sensation, then warmth spreading through his body. Feel any different? Mira asked. Not yet, Jack admitted, but I haven't needed adrenaline yet. The base shook again, harder this time. Red lights began flashing. Warning, announced a voice. Shield failure imminent. 5 minutes to breach. Jack looked at Mira. I think we're about to find out if it works. Commander Vex stood in the command center, watching as the perfect formation of Void Hunter ships closed in. Their black hulls absorbed light, making them look like holes in space. Jack arrived, now wearing a modified Tellurian combat suit. It was too small for him in places, making him look even stranger. I need to see them up close, Jack said. When they breach. Vex stared at him. That's suicide. Maybe for a Tellurian, Jack replied. But I'm human. We do crazy things all the time. Before Vex could argue, the main screen showed the shields flickering, then failing completely. Shield down. Trell shouted. Void hunters approaching main dock. Jack headed for the door. That's my cue. Vex grabbed his arm. Wait. What's your plan? Jack grinned, an expression that looked slightly frightening on his alien face. I'm going to scare them. How? By being human. With that, Jack left the command center. Vex turned to Officer Trell. Follow him, he ordered. Record everything. If this works, we need to know why. The screen showed Void Hunter boarding ships attaching to the main dock. Their troops would enter soon, killing everything in their path with cold efficiency. In the 3 months since the Void Hunters had appeared, not a single Tellurian had survived direct contact with them. Vex could only hope that a human would fare better. Jack moved through the empty corridors of Crystal Base, heading toward the main dock. Behind him, Officer Trell followed at a distance, recording everything with a small device in her hand. You don't have to hide, Jack called over his shoulder. I know you're there. Trell stepped out from behind a column, her antenna twitching nervously. Commander Vex ordered me to observe. Then observe from beside me, Jack said. I might need your help. They continued together until they reached a large observation window overlooking the main dock. Below, a Void Hunter ship had attached itself to the base. A perfect circle was being cut into the docking bay door. They'll be through in 30 seconds, Trell whispered, her blue skin paling to a lighter shade. We should hide. Jack shook his head. No. I need to see how they move, how they think. The circle in the door completed, and the cut section fell inward with a crash. Through the opening came the Void Hunters. They were taller than Jack had expected, nearly 7 feet high. Their thin gray bodies moved with mechanical precision as they entered the base in 2 perfect lines. They're even arranging themselves in a pattern, Jack muttered. Oldest in front, youngest in back. Perfect spacing between each one. How do you know that? Trell asked. Just a guess, Jack replied. But look at them. Everything about them screams order. The Void Hunters moved deeper into the base, their movements synchronized. Each carried a long weapon that glowed with green energy. They're heading for the command center, Trell said. They always target leadership first. Jack smiled. Perfect. That's what they always do. Yes, it's the most efficient strategy. Then we'll do something inefficient. Jack pulled out the modified energy pistol. I need to get to your communication room. The big one that can reach far away. The galactic transmitter. It's 3 levels down, but... Lead the way, Jack interrupted. And try to look scared when we encounter them. Trell's antenna stood straight up. I won't be pretending. Commander Vex watched the main screen as the Void Hunters moved through the base. They followed the same pattern they had used in all previous attacks, splitting into groups of 6 and heading for key locations. They're moving toward us, Officer Gout reported. 2 groups. ETA 4 minutes. Vex nodded. He had expected this. All personnel, prepare for last defense. Science Officer Mira stood nearby, watching a different screen. This one showed Jack and Trell moving through maintenance tunnels, avoiding the main corridors. What is he doing? Vex asked, joining her. They're heading for the galactic transmitter, Mira replied. I don't know why. A sudden commotion at the main door drew everyone's attention. The door slid open, and 2 Tellurian security officers burst in, their weapons ready. Void Hunters, one shouted. They changed course. They're not coming here first. Vex frowned. That's impossible. They always target command first. Not this time, the officer insisted. They're heading for the civilian sections. Cold fear gripped Vex's heart. Evacuate the civilians. Now. As the command center erupted into activity, Mira pointed at her screen. Look. The screen showed a small group of Void Hunters in a corridor. They had stopped moving in formation and appeared to be looking around in confusion. What's happening to them? Vex asked. Mira zoomed in on the scene. I'm not sure, but... She paused, eyes widening. They're receiving some kind of signal, and it's disrupting their patterns. Jack stood in the galactic transmitter room, hands moving over the control panel. Trell watched nervously from the door. "What are you sending?" she asked. "Noise," Jack replied. "Random, chaotic, emotional noise. On all frequencies." "What good will that do?" Jack grinned. "These void hunters communicate with each other constantly, right? Sharing data, coordinating movements. Yes, they function as a single mind. So I'm giving them something their single mind can't process. Human music, human emotions, human stories, all at once, all jumbled together." The screen in front of Jack showed a diagram of the base. Small dots representing void hunters were moving erratically now, no longer in their perfect formations. "It's working," Trell exclaimed. "They're confused." "Not for long," Jack warned. "They'll adapt. We need to hit them now, while they're off balance." He activated the base-wide communication system. "This is Jack Stone. To all Tellurian security forces, the Void Hunters are vulnerable. They're confused by irregular patterns. Attack them now, but not in groups. One by one, from different directions. Make noise. Be unpredictable." In the corridors throughout the base, the confused Void Hunters encountered something they had never faced before: chaos. Tellurian defenders attacked from air vents, from behind doors, from underneath floor panels. They shouted and made noise, confusing the Void Hunters' sensitive hearing. In the command center, Vex watched in amazement as the Void Hunters began to retreat. "They're falling back to their ships," Gal reported, disbelief in his voice. "We're winning." "Not yet," Vex cautioned. "They'll regroup and try again. But this gives us time." The door to the command center opened, and Jack entered with Trell behind him. The human looked tired but pleased. "It worked," he said. "For now." "How did you know that would confuse them?" Vex asked. Jack shrugged. "I didn't. But when something is too perfect, too ordered, it can't handle disorder. That's basic human thinking." "You've given us a chance," Vex said gratefully. "But they'll be back, and they'll have learned from this encounter." "Good," Jack said, surprising everyone. "Because now we know they can learn. And if they can learn, they can be tricked." Mira approached Jack, her eyes bright with excitement. "The adrenaline enhancer worked. I monitored your vital signs. Your reaction time increased by 40% during the crisis." Jack touched the patch on his neck. "I did feel different. More focused, somehow." "What now?" Trell asked. "They'll return with more ships, more troops." Jack walked to the main screen, studying the Void Hunter vessels as they retreated to a safe distance. "Now we prepare. You said there were 12 outposts before this one." "Yes," Vex confirmed. "All destroyed." "Were there survivors? People who escaped?" Vex shook his head. "No. The Void Hunters are thorough." "Are you sure?" Jack pressed. "Because humans would have found a way to escape. Some of them, at least." Vex and Mira exchanged looks. "There were rumors," Mira admitted. "Reports of small ships leaving just before the final attacks. We assumed they were destroyed in space." "Check again," Jack suggested. "And while you're at it, get me everything you have on Void Hunter ship designs. If we're going to beat them, we need to know how they think, how their ships work." "You believe we can win?" Vex asked, hope creeping into his voice. Jack's face grew serious. "I believe that when cornered, any species will fight harder than ever before. But humans," he smiled grimly, "humans fight hardest when protecting others." As if to punctuate his words, the base sensors picked up new signals. The Void Hunters were regrouping, forming new patterns, preparing for another attack. The first battle had been won, but the real war was just beginning. 3 days had passed since the first battle. 3 days of small victories and growing hope. Jack had helped the Tellurians reorganize their defenses, teaching them to fight in ways the Void Hunters couldn't predict. But now everything was changing. "They're coming back," Officer Trell announced, looking at the main screen in the command center. All of them. The screen showed more Void Hunter ships than ever before, dozens of black vessels moving in new complex formations. "They've adapted," Commander Vex said grimly. "Just as you predicted." Jack studied the approaching fleet. The Void Hunters were no longer using the simple patterns they had used before. Their formations were now irregular, almost random-looking. "They're trying to mimic chaos," Jack observed. "But it's still calculated, still following rules." "Will our tactics still work?" Mira asked. Jack shook his head. "Not as well. We need something new." He turned to Vex. "Did you find any survivors from the other outposts?" "Yes," Vex replied. "We detected a small colony hidden in an asteroid field. They'd been sending us information about Void Hunter weaknesses. And the Void Hunters can't process certain types of sensory input. Extremely bright lights, rapid sound changes. It overloads their neural networks." Jack nodded. "That fits with what we've seen. Their brains are like computers. They can crash if given too much data." He looked at Mira. "Can we use that?" "Maybe," she said. "We could modify our shields to flash with intense light patterns." "Do it," Jack ordered, "and prepare all civilians for evacuation. If this doesn't work." A sudden alarm cut him off. Red lights flashed throughout the command center. "They're attacking," Gal shouted from his station. "Multiple points of entry." Jack looked at the tactical display. The Void Hunters were breaching the base in a dozen different places, using a strategy that looked almost human. "They're learning from us," he realized. "Get everyone to battle stations. This is going to be harder than before." Jack ran through the corridors with a group of Tellurian defenders. They had been pushed back, step by step, as waves of Void Hunters poured into the base. The modified light shields had slowed the enemy down but not stopped them. The Void Hunters had quickly adjusted, developing filters for their vision. "Fall back to Junction 12, Jack called to his team. "Set up crossfire positions." They reached the junction, a place where 4 corridors met. Jack positioned his fighters in hidden spots, ready to ambush the approaching enemies. "Remember," he told them, "no patterns. Fire at random intervals. Move after every 3rd shot." The first group of Void Hunters appeared at the far end of the corridor. They moved more cautiously now, learning from previous encounters. "Wait for my signal," Jack whispered. He let the Void Hunters approach, watching their movements. They were still too coordinated, too perfect in their spacing. Despite trying to mimic chaos, they couldn't fully embrace it. "Now," Jack shouted. The Tellurians opened fire from multiple positions. Several Void Hunters fell immediately, but the others reacted quickly, returning fire with deadly accuracy. A bolt of green energy struck near Jack, sending him flying backward. Pain exploded in his side where the energy had grazed him. He crashed into a wall and slid to the floor. Through blurred vision, he saw 3 Void Hunters advancing toward him, weapons raised. A normal person might have surrendered or tried to crawl away. But Jack wasn't normal. He was human. As the pain hit him, the adrenaline patch on his neck activated. His vision sharpened. Time seemed to slow down. A strange calm fell over him, even as his heart raced. Jack had been injured many times in his life. Rock climbing accidents, a car crash once. He knew how his body responded to pain. With a roar that echoed through the corridor, Jack launched himself at the nearest Void Hunter. The enemy, calculating that a wounded opponent would retreat, was unprepared for a frontal assault. Jack tackled the creature to the ground. Up close, the Void Hunter smelled like metal and ozone. Its cluster of small eyes widened in what might have been surprise, if such beings could feel surprise. Jack grabbed the Void Hunter's weapon and fired point-blank at the second enemy. The third Void Hunter hesitated for a fraction of a second. A fatal mistake. Jack swung around and fired again. In the sudden silence, Jack became aware of the Tellurians staring at him. He was covered in his own blood, breathing hard. standing over 3 dead enemies. How? Trell asked, her voice barely a whisper. You were wounded. Jack looked down at his injury. It was painful but not life-threatening. Humans fight harder when hurt, he explained. Adrenaline. Survival instinct. Before anyone could respond, Mira's voice came over the communication system. Jack. Commander Vex is trapped in Section 8. The Void Hunters have broken through. When Jack reached Section 8, he found chaos. Void Hunters had surrounded a small group of Tellurians, including Commander Vex and Mira. They were pinned down behind fallen debris, their position hopeless. Jack's side burned with pain, but the adrenaline kept him moving. He needed a distraction, something unpredictable. Looking around, he spotted an environmental control panel. The section's atmosphere, gravity, and temperature could all be adjusted from there. With a grim smile, Jack limped to the panel and began pressing buttons at random. The lights in the section began to flicker wildly. The gravity fluctuated, making everyone float for a moment before crashing down again. The temperature dropped suddenly, creating a fog as moisture in the air condensed. The Void Hunters froze, their sensory systems overwhelmed by the rapidly changing environment. Their perfect coordination faltered as each one tried to process too many variables at once. Jack used the confusion to reach Vex and the others. This way, he shouted, while they're distracted. They escaped just as the Void Hunters began to recover. In the corridor outside Section 8, Vex turned to Jack with a mixture of awe and fear. He struggled to find the words. Crazy, Jack suggested with a pained smile. Reckless. Effective, Vex finished, but also terrifying to watch. Jack leaned against the wall, feeling the adrenaline beginning to fade. The pain in his side grew stronger. Get me to the communication room, he said through gritted teeth. I need to send a message. You need medical attention, Mira insisted, looking at his wound. Later, Jack said. First, I need to call for help. The Galactic Council won't help us, Vex said bitterly. They abandoned us when the Void Hunters first appeared. Jack shook his head. Not the Council. I'm calling my own kind. Vex stared at him. There are no humans in space. The barrier. Do you really think a barrier could keep all humans contained? Jack asked with a weak laugh. We're too curious, too stubborn. Some of us found ways out, ways to live on the edges of known space. How do you know this? Mira asked. Jack's eyes grew distant. Because before I was a geologist, I was a spacer. Born on Earth, but raised on ships that slipped through the cracks in your barrier. There are human colonies out there. Small, hidden, but real. And they'll help us? Vex asked. Jack nodded. Humans protect their friends. And after fighting alongside you, I'd call you friends. As if in answer to his words, a new alarm sounded. The Void Hunters had regrouped and were pushing forward again, learning from each encounter, becoming more unpredictable themselves. We're running out of time, Vex said. Jack pushed himself off the wall, ignoring the pain. Then let's not waste any more of it. Jack stood before the galactic transmitter, his fingers dancing across the control panel. His side was bandaged now, but pain still flashed through him with every movement. He ignored it, focusing on the task at hand. Message encoded and ready, he announced, sending on hidden frequencies. Mira watched him with concern. How will they find us in time? The Void Hunters will break through our last defenses within hours. Humans are good at doing the impossible, Jack said with a tight smile, especially when friends are in danger. The message sent, disappearing into the vastness of space. Jack leaned heavily against the console, suddenly looking very tired. Now we hold on, he said, for as long as we can. The next 6 hours were the hardest the Crystal Base had ever faced. The Void Hunters attacked relentlessly, pushing deeper into the station with each assault. The Tellurians fought bravely, using every trick Jack had taught them, but they were outnumbered and exhausted. Jack moved from section to section, directing the defense, ignoring his worsening injury. The adrenaline enhancer kept him going, but Mira warned him that using it too long could cause permanent damage. "If we don't win today," Jack told her, "permanent damage won't matter much." In the command center, Commander Vex received the worst possible news. "Our main power core is failing," Officer Gal reported. "The Void Hunters targeted the cooling systems. We have maybe 30 minutes before total shutdown." Vex closed his eyes briefly. Without power, they would lose life support, weapons, everything. "Evacuate all remaining civilians to the emergency shelters," he ordered. "Prepare for final defense." The door to the command center slid open, and Jack entered. He looked pale, his bandages stained with fresh blood, but his eyes were alert and focused. "Status?" he asked. "Power failing," Vex said simply. 30 minutes. Jack nodded. "Then we make our last stand at the main dock. Force them to come through a single point. And if your human friends don't arrive in time," Vex asked quietly. Jack met his gaze steadily. "Then we give the Void Hunters a fight they'll never forget." 25 minutes later, Jack stood with the last defenders at the main dock. 60 Tellurians, armed with the best weapons they had, positioned behind makeshift barriers. The huge metal doors were sealed shut, but they could hear the Void Hunters cutting through from the other side. "Remember," Jack told the defenders, "no patterns, no predictability. When they break through, hit them with everything, all at once." A young Tellurian soldier looked at Jack with frightened eyes. "Can we really win?" Jack put a hand on the soldier's shoulder. "In my world, we have a saying. It's not over until it's over." Commander Vex stood beside Jack, holding a weapon he hadn't used in years. "It has been an honor," he said formally. "Save the goodbyes," Jack replied. "We're not done yet." The huge doors began to glow red as the Void Hunters' cutting tools reached the final layer. Sparks flew as the metal weakened. Jack checked his weapon one last time. The modified energy pistol was set to maximum chaos. Random bursts, unpredictable power levels. Not efficient, but very human. 10 seconds. Troll called from her position. Jack took a deep breath. The adrenaline enhancer kicked in one more time, sharpening his senses. He could hear the Tellurians breathing, the hum of their weapons, the sizzle of the door being cut through. 5 seconds. The door began to buckle inward. 3, 2, 1. With a deafening crash, the door fell. Through the opening poured the Void Hunters, dozens of them. Weapons ready. "Fire," Jack roared. The Tellurians unleashed everything they had. Energy bolts lit up the dock in a chaotic light show. Void Hunters fell, but more kept coming. Jack fired again and again, moving constantly, never staying in one spot. Beside him, Vex fought with unexpected skill, his movements quick and precise. For a moment, it seemed like they might hold the line, but there were too many Void Hunters, and the Tellurians were too few. "Fall back to position 2. Jack ordered as the first barrier was overwhelmed. They retreated to the second line of defense, 10 feet back. Jack felt a sharp pain as a Void Hunter weapon grazed his arm, leaving a burning wound. "Power core at critical," Gal's voice announced over the communication system. 2 minutes to shut down. The Void Hunters pressed forward, adapting to the chaos, their perfect formations broken but their numbers overwhelming. Jack found himself back-to-back with Vex, surrounded by enemies. "Any last tricks, human?" Vex asked, firing his weapon. "Just one," Jack replied. "Never give up." As if in answer to his words, a new alarm sounded, but this one was different. It was the proximity alert for the space outside the base. New contacts detected. Trell shouted from somewhere behind them. Multiple ships entering the system. The Void Hunters hesitated, their coordinated attack faltering as they processed this new information. Jack grinned through the pain. Right on time. The entire base shook as something powerful struck nearby. But it wasn't an attack on the base. It was targeted at the Void Hunter ships outside. "This is Captain Reeves of the human vessel Starhammer," a new voice announced over the base-wide communication system. "Crystal Base, we received your message. Cavalry has arrived." The Void Hunters began to retreat, pulling back toward their entry point. Their perfect coordination was completely gone now, replaced by what looked almost like panic. "They're running," Trell exclaimed. "The Void Hunters are running." Jack stumbled forward, exhaustion finally catching up with him as the adrenaline faded. Vex caught him before he could fall. "Your friends came," the commander said, amazement in his voice. "Humans keep their promises," Jack replied weakly. 1 hour later, Jack stood in the command center, watching the main screen with satisfaction. Outside Crystal Base, a dozen human ships surrounded the fleeing Void Hunter vessels, attacking with wild, unpredictable patterns that the enemy couldn't counter. "I've never seen ships move like that," Mira said, watching the battle. "It's like they're dancing." "Human pilots," Jack explained. "No computer assistance, just instinct and training." Commander Vex approached, looking more relaxed than Jack had ever seen him. "The Void Hunters are retreating from the entire sector. Your friends were very convincing." Jack smiled. Humans tend to be when protecting others. The door to the command center opened, and a tall human woman entered. She wore a battered flight suit with various patches and insignia that no official military would recognize. "Captain Lisa Reeves," she introduced herself. "Independent trader and occasional rescuer of alien bases." Vex bowed formally. "The Tellurian people owe you a debt we can never repay." Reeves shrugged. "Jack's one of our own. And any enemy of the Void Hunters is a friend of ours." "How did you find us so quickly?" Mira asked. "We were already in the area," Reeves explained, "monitoring the Void Hunter advance. When Jack's call came through, we gathered everyone we could." Jack looked at the screen again, at the human ships protecting the Tellurian base. "The Galactic Council won't be happy about this." "The Council hasn't been happy about humans for 300 years, Reeves said with a laugh. "But after today, they might have to reconsider their ban." "Why?" Vex asked. "Because today proves what humans have always known," Jack said. "That we're stronger together. Humans, Tellurians, and all the other species. Logic needs emotion. Order needs chaos. That's the balance the universe requires." Vex looked thoughtful. "Perhaps it's time for humans to rejoin the galactic community." "We'd like that," Reeves said. "But on equal terms this time. No more barriers. No more secrets." Jack winced as his injuries reminded him of their presence. "First, let's make sure the Void Hunters don't come back. Then we can worry about galactic politics." Mira checked his bandages with concern. "You need proper medical treatment. Your human physiology is fascinating, but not invincible." "I'll be fine," Jack insisted. "Humans heal quickly." "Another useful trait," Vex observed, "among many." As medical staff arrived to take Jack to the infirmary, he looked around at the Tellurians and humans working together in the command center. Two species that had once feared each other, now united against a common enemy. Sometimes, Jack thought, the most unpredictable outcome is the best one. And humans were nothing if not masters of the unpredictable.